Imagine that your best friend has called you several times early in the morning this week to talk about his girlfriend situation. But you don't like to receive those phone calls because it is your best time to sleep. However, you don't dare to talk about the issue because of fear of losing friendship. That is exactly a case of conflict avoidance. Today, in this video presentation, I will talk about what is conflict avoidance by managers and its consequence on subordinates' attitudes, working with people who avoid conflicts, and managing conflict techniques. First, I will explain what conflict avoidance is and cover some examples. Conflict avoidance is a method of reacting to a conflict, which attempts to avoid directly confronting the issue and suppress an unpleasant encounter. There are three ways or methods of avoiding conflict. Number one, changing the subject. Number two, putting off a discussion until later. And number three, pretending it isn't happening. Conflict avoidance could happen in a workplace, between your subordinates, co-workers, or your boss. Also, it can manifest between your friends and your family members. Conflict avoidance result can be either win-lose, win-win, or lose-lose. Young, in his article published in 2015, says the concept of conflict avoidance relates to individualistic or collectivistic cultures or dimension. For instance, individualistic cultures such as the United States prefer to use more active and confrontational tactics on resolving conflicts. People in collectivistic cultures such as South Korea dislike social disagreements and therefore prefer passive and collaborative tactics of resolving conflicts. Next, I will cover the conflict avoidance by managers and its consequences by subordinates' attitudes. Park, in his article published in 2015, argues that the limitation of times that manager has and cognitive capability would most likely lead them to adopt neglect or passive conflict avoidance. Park suggests that conflict avoidance may be perceived more by subordinates than by manager himself or herself. People in higher ranks generally pay less attention to peoples with low power or little power, and consequently may miss cues about subordinates' ongoing conflicts and feelings towards supervisors or between peers. Same author reports most managers do not notice the impact of their teasing and bullying behavior on subordinates because subordinates most of the time tend to withdraw rather than complain about their treatment. Now, I will talk about working with people who avoid conflict. The negative side effect of avoiding conflict in a workplace is a high rate of turnover, a dysfunctional working environment, strained communication, loss of productivity, and impaired teamwork, said Arlene 2018. He believes that the best way to address conflict avoidance is by creating a culture where employees feel valued and listened to. Employees should be able to voice their opinions, concerns, and comments without fear of being placed in the firing line. Human resources managers play an exceptional role in helping co-workers gain confidence, acting as follows: being trusted advisor, discouraging gossiping between co-workers, brainstorming for solutions, encouraging them to have a honest conversation with their boss or co-workers, and providing honest feedback and ongoing support. Finally, I will explain several techniques on managing conflicts. Lewitter, in this article published in 2018, recommends 10 simple rules for avoiding and resolving conflicts between your colleagues, co-workers, or your friends. Rule number 1, always treat people with equality and respect. Whether interact with your peers, with your boss, or with your subordinates, treat people equally and fairly. Rule number 2, seriously consider and respect others' point of view. You may not always agree with your colleagues' view, but remember, your colleagues may have different and valuable perspectives. If you disagree with someone, say and explain why. If this happens, remain calm and professionally. Don't let anger or resentment build up. In short, communicate calmly and early to prevent confrontation. Rule number 4, make sure you are on the same page. To reduce the chance of misinterpretation and to ensure that what you mean to convey isn't lost, it's important to be clear in your communication. Number 5, pause before you press send. Whether you are writing or you are speaking with a colleague, think before you do so. If you are upset and plan to send an email, it is better to write a draft, think a little bit, and then send. The same goes for verbal communication. If you have some confrontation with your colleague, think for a while and then you can speak about the issue with clear of thoughts in your mind. Number 6, apologize when you do something wrong. We all make mistakes. If you have had a disagreement about an issue or treated someone disrespectfully, there is nothing wrong, but everything right in offering a sincere apology about the issue. Rule number 7, engage in honest, non-confrontational dialogue. If you disagree with someone, you need to talk about the issue later on and respectfully abort the situation. Rule number 8, know who to turn to if you need impartial advice. If you find yourself being confronted by a colleague who uses inappropriate language or who makes you feel threatened, don't reply with kind. Look for help. Number 9, know when it's worth fighting for your point of view. There is an old saying, don't beat your head against the wall. If you do, it feels much better when you stop. If you are in an argument that's not moving toward resolution, walk away. Rule number 10, if the problem is unresolvable, distance yourself. Unfortunately, not all conflicts are resolved or to be resolved to everyone's liking. It may be necessary at some point to distance yourself. In summary, I have covered conflict avoidance definition, perceived conflict avoidance by manager and its consequence on subordinates' attitudes, how to work with people who avoid conflicts, and managing conflict techniques. Now, having a better understanding of conflict avoidance, you can approach your boss, your employees, or even your family member conflicts as a part of daily life and see them as an opportunity to grow personally or in a business field.